Hello and welcome everyone and welcome to Mary Neely. You're incredible and really cool, and just looking over your bio is huge, and your viral videos. I know that's not what you're famous for, but currently that's what you're famous for, and I love those. The theater geek in me geeked out about that. So we really just wanted to take some time with you today to hear about you and your career and how you got to where you got to, and what it's like navigating the industry, and then give folks the opportunity to ask you questions directly and talk to you about their experiences, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, no, thank you for having me and saying all those nice things. Yeah, I was like a really big theater nerd kid when I was growing up. That's all I cared about. It was like my entire life. I was just like obsessed with seeing as many plays as I could and being in as many plays as I could. And I just wanted to go and move to New York more than anything, and try to be on Broadway and just do Shakespeare or like rep theater like throughout the country. I was just like, whatever, I'll do whatever. I just want to be on stage. Like that was my whole thing. And so I did a lot of theater, just like community theater. I grew up in LA. So there was like, it's interesting because obviously LA is known for TV and film, but I didn't care about that part of the city. And I actually thought that LA was really superficial and like lacked just like art or whatever. Like I was like, no, New York is the place to be or whatever. And so I did plays at my high school, and I was in the process of applying to theater conservatory programs for college when that was in 2008, and the market crashed. Like, and my dad is like coupon guy, like he, just every penny counts, man. And so he had been saving like just like a little bit of money like every year since I was born so that I could go to college, because both of my parents had dropped out of college, and they both, it was like they were not very unified on a lot, but they were very unified on me like going to college. And so they were like, okay, like Mary's gonna go to college, like whatever. And so I was like, I'm gonna study theater. But then the financial crash happened, and he was really affected by it. And he was like, I actually can't pay for you to go to whatever school that you want, and like you can't go to New York. And it was like really devastating because I had my heart set on this like for so long. And I ended up getting into UCLA's theater program with a scholarship, which is really awesome. And then I also had in-state tuition, and so I could afford to go. And it's also such an amazing school. But I was like bummed, I'm not gonna lie, like, which sounds kind of like, I mean, very privileged, but it was just like, I didn't want to stay in LA. I wanted to get out. I feel like everybody knows that feeling of wanting to get out of their hometown. And so I like worked at Urban Outfitters, like in Westwood, like right before I started school. And like UCLA starts way later than a lot of other colleges, so I was like depressed and just like folding like like all these clothes, and I was just like, man, like I wish I was in New York right now, whatever. But I'm so happy that I went to UCLA because it's such an amazing school. I mean, for so many reasons, I was so lucky to get the resources that I did while I was there. I mean, not only did I loved my theater class. That's the thing I love about theater too, is that there's this camaraderie and there's just like so much community in that. And so I had incredible peers that I could study with, and I will always be grateful for that. And then I started becoming really into film history, and UCLA has an incredible film archive at the university. So I like was completely like, I did like a 180 almost in this way that I really didn't expect, and I started just watching films like all the time. And like I wasn't really getting cast in department shows for whatever reason, but I was getting cast in student films by the film students. You could put your headshot in this binder in the film school, and they would just call you, and I was getting called to do that like all the time. And so it was just this like kind of natural transition into me appreciating film in a way I never had before. And like also I took this Dogma 95 class, which is this Danish film history like film movement. It's like essentially like based on French New Wave, where it's this manifesto of trying to just like get rid of the Hollywood tropes of filmmaking and return back to this really like authentic and like very like a specific storytelling. And it reminded me of theater. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that like filmmaking could have this kind of like theatrical element to it. And the two mediums are linked way more than I ever thought. And so I started just like doing everything. Like I was like, I'm gonna like go and be a PA on a set. I'm gonna like script supervise. I'll intern for this casting director just so that I could learn like every facet of filmmaking, because I think that makes you a better actor too. And that was where I was coming from at the time, where I was like, well, if I'm gonna be on set, like I want to know what everybody's job is, because I had already like been studying theater. I did high school theater programs as well, where I would like spend my summer like doing plays. And so I felt like pretty well versed in what everybody's job was in a theater and like doing a play, but I didn't understand what it was like for film. And so I just like, I would work kind of like odd end jobs. Like I worked like, you know, at restaurants, I said Urban Outfitters. I never again, like don't shop there. But it's just like, I was doing a lot. I was just trying to like get everything like in my brain. And I didn't really realize that I was like basically training myself to be a filmmaker in that way of like studying film history, watching films, and then just being on set and learning by doing. Because I think that that's the best thing you can do, like for any job ever. And so I got out of school and like I actually got a commercial agent while I was still in college in this very like roundabout crazy way, and I started booking commercials, which I'm super grateful for because it gave me an amazing like lifestyle. I mean, I was like making a nice living, and I didn't have to have a day job, which is like commercials are like such a good job for actors just starting out. But I found myself being really like just left alone in my apartment because I had gone from all this structure and being like regimented and doing things every day and having all my classes set out for me and having like all these opportunities to work on sets and do whatever. And then I was just like alone in my apartment, like, wait, what do I do now? And so I just started experimenting a lot, where I would just get together with my friends. I took improv classes. I started like writing and directing sketches, really because I was like, well, no one else is going to do it, so I'll just do it. And that's how I learned how to edit, because I just like was, again, literally looking at YouTube tutorials. And then like I wrote a script with my friend and we were like, oh, this is just like to pass the time. Because I really did not think of myself as a writer or a director. I felt like I was just doing it because I was like, well, I'm an actor. I'm only an actor, but like, I'll just do this right now. Like, whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? And then that script ended up getting into this, the Academy that does the Oscars or whatever. They have this screenwriting competition every year called the Nickel Fellowship. And we got into like the top 40 out of like thousands of applicants. And like, that was like, we just got that recognition. And that was kind of like this turning point where I was like, oh, I guess I could do this. I guess I have the skill and talent. I don't know. But I still had like imposter syndrome really up until not that long ago. I'm not going to lie. But after that, I was like, okay, well, I'll just like make a short film because I want people to see me as an actor. I was getting a lot of work commercially, but I wasn't getting any work in TV or film, which is like what I really wanted to be doing. And so I was like, well, I need to create like a visual resume for myself, because that's how people are going to hire you. That's how people hire you for any job. They need to see your work. They need to see like what you can do. And so I was like, well, I'll make this short film and it's just going to be for like my acting. But then I made it and everybody was like, wait, your writing's really funny. Your directing's really good. Your editing is really good. You should keep doing this. I was like, I don't know. No, come on. No, guys, stop, no. And then I like felt so, I went to this like film festival that the short got into, and everybody was so supportive of me. And I felt that kind of same camaraderie that I had felt when I was in theater school. And it just gave me so much like energy. So I ended up making a web series that was based on my short film. And I like just went so, I mean, I was like, it was so guerrilla. Like I like was just literally like doing the call sheets in my car while I was like delivering groceries because I used to work for Instacart. Like I was just like getting like calling everybody that I knew. We were stealing shots all over LA, like no permits, nothing. Like my friend found like a restaurant that let us just like buy nachos and like let us just like film at the restaurant. Just like stuff like that where it's just like making it happen with like no money or resources. You're just like, I'm just doing this, I guess. And that got the attention of like some managers and more people in the industry. It didn't necessarily like be like this huge viral success online, but like everybody who did watch it would say like, oh, I just meant to watch one episode and I ended up watching the whole series like back to back. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. But then truthfully, I had this very negative experience where these like Hollywood producers like came and they were like, we want to make this like a TV show. And it was like, I was like, oh my God, this is like a dream come true. Like, I didn't even really expect this. Like, I was just making this because I wanted to make it, like whatever. And they were like, we want you to do everything like that you did in the series. We want you to write and direct and produce and everything and act. And you're going to have your own TV show and all this stuff. But they were not looking out for me. You know, it was like, and I, to be honest with you, like just in my own personal journey, like I have had a very hard time kind of like discerning when people are actually supporting me and when they're not. And so, you know, I don't blame myself. I mean, of course I wanted to jump at an opportunity like that because it's like, it was so incredible sounding at the time, but there were red flags along the way that I kind of ignored. And they just like, yeah, they didn't care about me as a person. They wanted just to use me as a thing to sell and to like make money for themselves, which, I mean, this is a business, so it's like I understand that side of it. But that's not why I want to personally make things. I don't want to just be some talking piece for like somebody else to like make a boatload of cash. And I might have made a boatload of cash, but I don't really care. I would have been miserable because these people were kind of evil. And I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I mean, it's like so many things happen like in between what I'm saying, whatever. It's like a long-winded story, but I just was like, I can't do this. And I decided to like back out. And it was just like a really challenging experience because like I had a ton of people like paying attention to me. And then all of a sudden nobody was paying attention to me. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't even write and direct. Like maybe I should just focus on acting. And I did go through like a depression. Like I was like very depressed and like I just felt like, you know, I'm such a goal setter. And like when I say that I want to do something, I usually accomplish it. And that was like one of the first times that I set out to do something and it didn't happen. And I also have had a hard time placing my self-worth like on my success. And that is like a dangerous thing, especially in an industry that's so like out of your control. Like so much of it is out of your control. So like I was like, wow, I have to really work on myself because I don't want to be in this position again, you know? And so can you hear my cat? He's meowing because I kept him out of the room. He's mad at me. Okay, I think he's fine. But I basically like just focused on my acting. I booked a series. I did more commercials. I was like, I'm done with this. But there was a girl who had seen my web series who was an assistant at an agency. And she was going to produce this short film. And she was like, I haven't been able to stop thinking of your web series. And this was like years later. I made the series in 2015. And in 2017, this girl called me and she was like, I have this, like, I'm producing this short film. And I think that you would be really amazing to direct it. And that was like, no one had ever asked me to direct anything, which is funny because like, I had made a lot of really awesome directing samples. Like I had multiple projects under my belt that people really liked, but nobody was calling me to do anything. My manager couldn't even really get me a job, like as a writer director. I was like booking some acting jobs, but that was it. And like he even said to me once, he was like, yeah, I don't know, it's so weird. I have like these male clients who've done like way less than you, and like I don't know, they got an agent really easily. I was like, oh, is it so weird? Is that so weird and crazy? Like what? Why would you say that to me? So it was just like so frustrating, and I was like, I'm kind of done with this, to be honest with you. But then this young woman was like, I love your stuff and I want you to direct this short. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yes, because I had like honed a lot of like new skills. Like I felt like my editing style had progressed. I also knew what it was like to go with a film through the festival circuit, so I had a lot more knowledge of how to like navigate everything. And I was like, let's go. And so I ended up making this short film in the summer of 2017, and like that was like the thing that reinvigorated so much for me, because it was the first time I directed something where I was just directing it and I wasn't like also acting in it, which by the way, I hate it's like acting in your own stuff that you're directing. I would not recommend it. If you have to do it, it's like you go for it, but it's just like you can't really concentrate as well, you know, on all the other stuff. So that was like such an incredible experience, because that short ended up getting into like South by Southwest and like played opening night at like Palm Springs like Short Fest, and we got Vimeo staff picked, and it even played before Booksmart at this theater in Milwaukee. And so that was like amazing for so many reasons. Like it was a great artistic experience, and then just like I felt like people really started taking me a lot more seriously, like because I had been on general meetings before, but when I went to general meetings after I made that short film, people were really like, oh wait, who are you, like what's your deal, like what's going on? I was like, oh yeah, hey, what's up? And I like, you know, could actually like, I actually felt like people were interested in me as like a creator in a serious way. And that was really cool. And I got signed to like my agency. And after that, like I wrote a feature film that I've been trying to make, because like my short was at South by Southwest in 2018. And when it got in, again, with the imposter syndrome, I'd had this idea for a feature film for so long, and it had been just marinating in my head or whatever. But I never was like, I don't know, is anyone gonna, like, who's gonna care about this? You know, like, is anyone even gonna pay attention to me? But then when it got into South by, I was like, okay, it's go time. I have to like make this happen. So I ended up writing the entire feature in like a few months. It's a musical, and that's been like a really interesting process, because I mean, for any filmmaker, your first feature is such a feat. Like it's just very hard to make and to get to that place. Like I mean, like unless you just have like a couple $1,000,000 lying around, like it's gonna take a lot of convincing for like a lot of people. And then also I'm like, I want to make an original musical, and everybody's like, that's so ambitious, and I'm like, I don't care, like whatever. And so I wrote it, and like this one girl who worked at Paramount was like, I'm buying it. And my agents even called me. They're like, you did it. And I like danced around my office for like 2 hours. Like, I did it. I did it. I did it. And then her boss got fired from the company, unrelated, and she couldn't like do anything. Like I was just like, oh, okay, which is kind of common, like in projects or whatever. But I was like, and so it was like back to the drawing board. And the end of 2018 was me going on just like meeting after meeting after meeting at like every studio, with them being like, oh my God, this script, it's so unique, it's so funny, it's so good, but I'm not gonna make it. And I was like, what the hell? And so finally, like one of my last meetings before the winter holiday, like this woman basically said the same thing. And I was like, can you just tell me like why you don't, like I've had this same conversation like 20 times now. Can you just tell me personally why you don't want to make this? And she was just like, you know, this, oh my God, my cat literally like hitting the door. Can you hear it? It's okay. all right, whatever. He'll be fine. He just, you know, he wants me to pay attention to him. Oh my God. Here, I'll bring him in. Do you mind that
Not at all. We're here for cats. You know we're a queer organization, right? We like the cats.
Yes. Okay, great. Great. Here he is.
Oh,
I know, he's really cute.
his name.
He's 5 months old. I call him Mr. Or this guy. This guy. Anyway, but so yeah, I just like she said to me like, "Oh, you know, I like love this film and I really feel like you should just make it on your own." Like she was just like, "You shouldn't be partnering with a company. Like this should be like an indie film that you just make by yourself." And I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll do that." So I started spending like all of 2019 just like trying to make it happen. Like me just like again going back to like cold calling whoever and like piecing together people who I had worked with before, and like I got really far in producing the movie, but like I just didn't have the money. And so it's like, what can you do if you don't have the money? And so then my agent was like, why don't you just take a break from this and like write a different feature that we can just sell, and then that'll kind of give you some like credit for like other people like producers who would like maybe want to like invest. If you sell the film and it's like well received, people would want to invest into like making the feature that you really want to make. And I was like, great, I'll do that. And I finished it, and then the lockdown happened. I'm like so I was like, wow, okay, whatever. And that's why like when I was in the lockdown, like I was like, I just want to be creatively fulfilled. Like, and I don't know if anybody's gonna be buying any scripts because who knows like what production is gonna be like or whatever. And that's when I decided to make my musical videos, because I just was like, man, I really miss being on set. I really miss like just having something fun to work on. Cause like the film that I wrote, like just to sell, like I like it a lot, but it's like a grueling process to just, I already was feeling isolated before the lockdown because I was just writing by myself. It's such like a solitary act to write, you know? And so I was already feeling like, oh man, I'm just at this coffee shop all day, or I'm just in my apartment all day writing this script, and like it's fun and funny, but like it doesn't bring me the same exact joy that I had when I was like working on a musical when I was younger. And so that's why like when the lockdown happened, I was like, I used to use like musical theater as this kind of coping mechanism to like, you know, as like an escapist thing of just like wanting to get in somewhere else. I mean, that's what escapism is, but like, yeah, just like listening to musicals brought me so much joy. And, you know, like in March and April, I was like really ruminating about just how much like grief and loss we're all experiencing in a myriad of ways, whether it be like loss of just like safety or like places, like businesses shutting down or like loved ones or whatever. And I was like, well, I kind of would love to bring back that idea of just like listening to musicals and letting them bring me joy and utilizing the skills that I've gained as like a filmmaker. And I literally was just doing it for my parents at first because I had like 800 followers on Twitter and nobody was paying attention. And then it just, yeah, it blew up in this way that I never expected. And like now I'm being taken even more seriously. I feel like it's like these levels, like you just, every time you do something, it's like people are like, oh, wait, who are you? It's like that continues, I feel like, forever. Like there's still like so many more levels to every single thing. Like, you know, and the types of people that you can get meetings with, you have to like get past these like I don't know, like levels. You get what I'm saying, right? I don't know. That's where I'm at now. I mean, I'm thinking of, I don't know, people are like, oh yeah, your musical is so great. Again, still no one is like, I'm gonna make it. And I'm like, haha, kind of going a little crazy, but it's fine. But yeah, I'm trying to sell this other movie now. I just got cast in a movie that I shot this past week that we shot on Zoom, which was so crazy. So I don't know. I'm grateful. I'm like, I feel like I can't believe I've been able to be creative during this time. It's really cool. But I feel like I felt like a responsibility too, because like I'm like able-bodied and like able-minded to like be able to make things. So I was like, well, as someone who has the skill set to make things that could bring people joy, I feel like I have to, or whatever, you know?
That's dope. I was gonna say I'm really glad. Also, hi, I'm Lauren. I haven't even like said hello. So, I am Lauren. I'm our youth programs coordinator of the Acceptance Center here in Birmingham. Um, I love how much you talk about imposter syndrome because I think it's something that like everybody feels, and like you're saying, like the levels of like when have I made it? Like when do I get to it? And like I don't know how much you know about Alabama. I don't know if you have like friends and people that are here, but I feel like as a state we have imposter syndrome as a state. Like we're like, I don't know, we're from Alabama, I guess this is fine. I'm from Alabama, I don't know if I can make that. Fellow Alabamians, do you feel that? Yeah. No, do you say no, Sydney?
No.
Good for you.
Oh.
But like especially in terms of getting into arts industries like film and TV, I think everybody from Alabama has this like, I don't want to say chip on their shoulder, but like it just feels so far away and so distant. So I was kind of curious, like if like you have connections or have you had experiences with people making films in the South? And you know, I know Atlanta's got a lot of things going on. New Orleans is starting to have some stuff, and Alabama has Get Out. Get Out was made here. That was cool. They look defensive already, so I don't know. I guess I was gonna ask, like, do you have like friends from the South or like people, projects? What are the connections?
Yeah, well, so my dad lives in Texas. Does that count as the South?
It does not.
Alabama.
Okay. Well, so my uncle, and my cousins, they live in Atlanta. And so I've been to Atlanta like a few times to visit them, but then I did book a commercial a few years ago that shot in Atlanta. And also I was dating someone for 4 years who was he's a stand-up and an actor, and booked a movie that shot all in Atlanta. And I went to go visit and like go to the wrap party and stuff, and like met a bunch of like the crew and everything. And yeah, like when I shot the commercial too, it was really interesting seeing like the kind of like mix between like LA actors and LA people that they brought, and then like using local actors and like, you know, casting people from the city and stuff. And like obviously the crew was all based there, and that was one of my favorite jobs like ever, because I had booked this movie, this musical actually called Valley Girl. They did a remake of Valley Girl, and the director of that cast me in a commercial like later, maybe like, I guess that was in 2018. Yeah, like over a year after I did that. That's the thing too. It's like every job is like an audition for another job. Do you know what I mean? Like every audition is an audition for another audition. Every job is an audition for another job. And so, yeah, like I had booked this movie, and we just liked working together, and she cast me in this commercial, and I got to go to Atlanta, and it was so fun. We had so much fun. I guess there was some conference or something happening, so they had to put us up in these hotels that were like kind of really outside the city, but I didn't mind because I think it's so beautiful. Like it's just like so lush and like nice. And then yeah, we ended up like the director was staying at this cool house that she like Airbnb'd or something, and we all hung out at the house and like cooked meals together. And then like this one night, because I didn't know that, is this inappropriate to talk about strip clubs? Am I not? It's fine.
No.
Okay. I didn't know Atlanta was like the strip club capital of the world or whatever. And so we ended up going to like a male strip club called Swinging Richards or something. And it was just like, it was like me and like a bunch of ladies from the shoot. And we were just like, yeah, like smoking cigarettes. Like it was crazy. Like I was like, I've never had a job like this before. And so if that's what working in the South is like, sign me up again.
That's terrible. Doesn't Atlanta have like the oldest, not oldest, but like they have a strip club where everyone who, what's it called? where everyone's old.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it. It's like kind of underground.
Yeah.
Basement. I think we went.
You would know if you'd been there.
I think I know what you're talking about. We didn't stay for long, but
yeah.
What it was interesting, yeah. But I actually might go on a road trip this summer, and I really want to see more of the South.
I'm down to Birmingham. You know people now.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Hey, MJ, are you at UAB? Is that correct?
Yeah, I graduated from UAB last spring, but I work there now.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
University of Alabama at Birmingham.
I was gonna make a comment about imposter syndrome as well, because I graduated with my BFA in graphic design, and so I get the whole artist brain thing and the struggle between, all of those things. And so I had a big realization probably my sophomore year, talking to a professor and mentor about just technique and art history and all that stuff and how things combine. And I was able to leave that conversation, and that was kind of like my aha moment of, oh wait, maybe I am an artist, because I'm able to make this work, but also having these conversations. And I was wondering if you had sort of an aha moment, or if it was when your script went to the Nickel, or your film was at South by Southwest, or anything like that.
I mean, I think there's been multiple times. It's never, I feel like it might be never ending. I can't tell, because I still struggle with it. I mean, I think I probably will be struggling with it for a while, but I remember when I was still in school, because I met this casting director who cast commercials at a barbecue, and she was like, oh, you have kind of this weird, interesting face. Do you want to do commercials? And I was like, oh, I mean, yeah, but I'm a junior, I'm not graduated from school yet, and blah, blah, blah. She was like, oh, just email me when you're gonna graduate or something, and maybe I'll help you find an agent. And I was like, wow, because my every theater program is you must finish your studies, you're not allowed to work outside of school or whatever. So I waited until January of my senior year, and I ended up emailing her, and she sent me out on oh my god, 14 meetings with different agents in LA, and they all said no to representing me. And I was so embarrassed, because I was like, well, this casting director is putting me out there, and I'm not doing what she wants or something. And I went to one of my professors, and I was like, yeah, I guess this is it or whatever. And he was like, no, just email her again and tell her that nobody said yes. And I was like, well, isn't that really embarrassing? And he was like, no, you should just email her. And so I was like, okay. So I ended up emailing her and saying oh, hey, Kathy, just want to let you know that everybody said no. And she was like, oh, that's so crazy. Here's 10 more. And I was like, oh. I went to 9 of them. They all said no. On the 10th one, I think maybe because I was just all right, here I am. At that point, I just was who cares at this point, whatever. They said yes. And I ended up booking the first job that they sent me out to audition for. And it was just this kind of lesson in you just have to keep trying. Do you know what I mean? And things work out in ways that you just would never expect. And things don't happen on your timeline, but they will pan out, And so it was that moment was a really important growing moment. And then writing that script was also a really important growing moment. Going to this film festival with my short, where I did this talent lab. That's what I was kind of talking about before, where everybody was this is really good. And it was international. So I was meeting filmmakers from Turkey and Ireland and China and all these different places. And it's my humor in it is like very specific in the short film that I wrote. So I was like, is this humor gonna translate to like other cultures? But everybody like thought it was really funny. And that was like a really big like, oh, okay, oh, all right, yeah, cool. I guess this works. Like, and then yeah, like it was like that. And then for sure, like getting into a festival like South by Southwest was like extremely affirming, and honestly still sometimes keeps me going. Still think about it for inspiration, because I'm like, I had a film at that festival. Like that's a big deal, you know?
Well, it sure worked out for you for representation. I of course went to IMDb Pro, like all good Hollywood creatives do, to look it up. I mean, UTA and anonymous content, A3 artists, it worked out. Things worked out for you.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it's funny, like after I made my web series and that I had that whole like kind of crazy experience of just like that negative experience that I was kind of talking about before, like I was just like, you know what? Like I really want to like focus on trying to find people who are actually going to like fight for me and care about me more, you know? And so I actually went and started hanging out with assistants who work at agencies, because they're young and they need the person to get them a promotion. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they're like, they like how they like work their way up at the company is they bring in talent that like, you know, is making money or has clout or whatever. And so they want to find the young talent that they can like show and be like, look at who I found. And then the company's like, good job, we're promoting you or whatever. And so like, I just became really obsessed with like, okay, I'm just going to hang out with all these like assistants at agencies and production companies and stuff. And so it was just like serendipity, because like my one friend who was an assistant and we'd been hanging out for years, and I really just truly love her as a person, she got promoted the same time that I went to South by Southwest with my film. So when I came back, she was like, I want to represent you. And I was like, this is ideal.
That's awesome. So can you talk a little bit about like, you know, for the kids who will be watching this, like your trajectory is pretty, I mean, you've gone over that, but like when you were in high school, what were the things that you were doing that you think set you on this path to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, like, I always was like wanting to do a lot of different things at the same time. I like being busy. I've always been like, how can I fill my time? I mean, to be completely honest with you, I didn't really enjoy my home life. And so I was always like trying to do things that like would make it so that I was like doing things outside of my home. Like I was like, how can I stay at school as long as possible? Haha, like that kind of thing. And so I was always like, but it was like the kind of same mentality that I was talking about before, when I was just like, you know, interning or doing odd end production jobs to like learn everything. Cause like I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. Like I did my first play when I was like 8 or 9. And I was like, I want to be a professional actor. And my parents were both like, absolutely not. Like you're like, you know, like child acting can lead to so many negative things. And so I was like, well, if I'm like, you know, informed as much as possible, then I will be ready, like when I can make my own decisions. Like that was kind of like my mentality or whatever. And so, yeah, I like in high school, I took every theater class that I could take. I did every play. Even when I got a really small part, sometimes I would like be like, okay, can I do the props or something? Can I do something? Like, how can I be more involved in this? And then like at my high school, we had like thespian society, and I was like vice president and I was president. And then we did this thing called urban ensemble, which was actually going to the Salvation Army and teaching kids who were living there like theater games and like playing like theater games with them. So I did that. And then, yeah, like I was also saying, like during the summer, I would apply to high school theater programs that I could do, like, because my parents were working all the time. So when I was like a little kid, they would just like send me to like random camps and stuff. But when I was a little, like when I was older and I could like really be like, I want to do this, like I got to choose. And so like actually like after my freshman year of high school, I did UCLA's summer theater program for like maybe I think 2 or 3 weeks, I can't remember. And that was really interesting because actually one of the women who taught me there randomly was the woman who auditioned me when I went to audition for the school, and she remembered me. And I was like 14 or 15 when I did the camp, and then I was like 17 or 18 when I auditioned for the school. And so I didn't expect her to remember me, but then she was like, oh yeah, like you did Our Town. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And then after my sophomore year, I did Carnegie Mellon's high school theater program, which is like a 6-week, basically like conservatory style program to kind of like teach high school kids like what being in a conservatory program is actually like. And then you can audition for the school at the end of the 6 weeks. And like when I was growing up, I always remember people being like, oh, I loved going to camp. I was so sad leaving camp. I cried when I like left all my friends. And I was always like, what are you talking about? Like, I've never liked camp. Like, camp sucks or whatever. And then when I went to Carnegie Mellon, I was fully sobbing when I had to leave because it was like the first time I felt like I was in an environment where everybody cared about the things that I cared about as much as me. Like, like the UCLA summer program was definitely like fun and really like helped my training actually. Like I still remember things from that summer when I was like 15, but the Carnegie Mellon summer, it was like this explosion of just like, oh my God, all these people get me, because like I felt like I was like, I went to a high school that was very focused on math and sciences, and I was just like, I was one of like maybe the only people in my class that really cared about theater like as much as I did and like really wanted to make it like my career. So when I went to Carnegie Mellon, I was like, you get it. Like, it was like so awesome. Like, and I was so sad when I left. I was so sad, but I'm still friends with people that I did that program with. Yeah, I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's the vibe that we try to hit. We do a camp for LGBTQ youth every year.
Oh, great.
And like that feeling that you're talking about of like, wow, I'm in the first space where people get me, like that on, I can't think of a good metaphor, but like to be able to provide a space for LGBTQ youth to be able to just be with one another and like have a shared language and shared history really important us. You mentioned classic film. I have one last question for you. I don't know if anybody else has questions. Okay, this is horrible to ask actors and directors and writers like favorite whatever, but okay, favorite classic film that has any kind of LGBTQ theme or element. Oddly defined classic.
Oh yeah, classic is an interesting one because it's like when you think
drop it, you can just name films.
Classic Hollywood, it's like yikes. Like,
yeah,
unfortunately. But just like in general, like oh my God, my favorite I think might be this film called Fucking Amour. It's a
oh yeah.
yeah.
You know that one, Lauren?
But I think that the English title is different and doesn't have the word fucking in it. I think it's like
right
or it's something like Hold Me Closer. I can't, let me look at but that I love that filmmaker so much. And his name is Lucas Moodysson. Show Me Love. Show Me Love is the American title. But I love that filmmaker so much. That was in the 90s. Does that count as classic?
We'll accept it.
That's like the first thing that came to my head. Because I studied Scandinavian film history like in school. And like there's just something really incredible, I think, about Scandinavian film because it does reject these like tropes of Hollywood and like traditional filmmaking in a way. But in that film in particular, I mean, I think he just has such an amazing way of capturing like youth and like the feeling of being young and the feeling of like being in a place that you want to get out of, and like this kind of like, yeah, exploration of like love and connection and stuff. I love that. That movie is like one of my favorites ever. And then classics, interesting. Classics. I don't know. What are your favorite classics?
Oh, I'm deferring.
Oh my
Dazed and Confused is pretty gay. Just kidding. I don't know. I mean, like, if you're talking about classics, is The Birdcage, would that be classic? Would we call that
I
classic?
love The Birdcage.
Maybe I should say iconic and not.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Birdcage, 100%. I love
Yeah.
The Birdcage.
But you're right, though. There's so much like in, you know, up until recently, and even including some stuff that's recent, that's a little cringy when you watch it.
Cringy.
Well, like you know, loose with terms and like, you know, sleight of hand offensive in some places, and you know, unintentionally probably, but
Yeah, indicative of just like the ignorance of like the time.
exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, because like when I was really young, my dad is like a huge classic movie buff. Like he knows like every like silent film and like is just like obsessed with like Cary Grant and like all these things. But we used to watch the Marilyn Monroe movie with Jack Lemmon, where you know, oh God, what's it called? I'm like blanking. The one where they like dress as women or whatever.
Yeah.
Like where it's just like when I was younger, I was like, wow, I love this film, and now I'm watching it and I'm like, yikes.
I'm like, it's hot.
Some Like It Hot. Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, the Disclosure documentary that's on Netflix right now. I don't know if anyone's
So
watched
good.
it. Was a huge eye-opener to the way trans people are portrayed in media, and I really appreciated the like actual examples and historical references and stuff like that it showed. It's really really good watch.
It's so
Instant classic. So good.
Iconic. Yes.
They slayed. They did that. Did anybody else want to share a favorite LGBTQ film? I mean, no pressure. You don't have to. I will say documentary, Paris is Burning, narrative, but I'm a cheerleader. Just in case anybody wants to know.
Lauren has a background in film, and so she's living her best life right now. And it's like the perfect combination because I come from a theater family, and so you are speaking to both of us in like.
Oh, great.
Thank you for that part.
Great.
MJ, I know you said you didn't have any other questions. Sydney or Lauren, since you are super excited about this as well, do you have other things to add in? I do want to wrap up soon so we can respect your time, but I want to give y'all one more opportunity to just fangirl if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, so much about your, you know, sort of near misses in working in this business, I can absolutely relate to, especially kind of like getting to that place and, you know, having something awful. I was at William Morris Endeavor for my first book, and it was, you know, we were just about to kind of go out to publishers, and I was at Endeavor for a little bit going out, and then they merged with William Morris, and my agent's boss was fired, and a new boss came in and said, we're focusing on celebrity clients, put your fiction people aside. So he was like, I have to deal with Jennifer Love Hewitt's book, and I'm sorry I can't deal with you right now, but you can wait. And I was like, no, I have to fire you. And then moved on, but it worked out. But yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that sort of getting so close, and then this business is just a series of heartbreaks, and then it's like a giant win to like take over and bury those heartaches. But yeah, relatable. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely. The timing and things that are completely unrelated to you and you have no control over. It's just like contending with that, being like, oh, this is just what happens. Haha.
Mary, you're amazing, and you bring so much joy to this world and to our lives and to the conversation. So thank you so much for doing this. We're really excited. We'll put this on our YouTube channel so more folks can see it. And who knows, maybe this is an audition for something local if you want to come to town. But thank you, thank you, thank you. You're incredible, and we're so lucky to have had your time and your energy and your incredible storytelling. You're amazing and so valid, and I'm so glad you know your worth. And you're amazing. I think I've said you're amazing 10 times. So we walk away feeling super cool and worth it. And I just want to say that I know the industry is really hard right now for our creators. And my heart goes out to you and all of your people. And hopefully you'll be back at work very, very, very soon, creating things outside of your home. We're thinking about all of you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so nice of you to say. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was really great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, okay. Bye, guys.
Take care.
Bye.